What is up, my crew? This is the Nook Podcast, and my name is Stephen Murphy. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. I hope that you find some encouragement here in our time together. I'm sure I can't be the only one who feels some fatigue and frustration when it comes to social media. I may go so far as to say that it has lost a little bit of its original charm. But before I go spiraling off on a tangent about its ills, allow me to sing its praises if only for a moment. I first heard of Katie Peslis sometime in 2020 when someone I follow on Instagram shared a video that she made. It was equal parts creative, clever, and her voice was absolutely amazing. Hoping that I might catch more of her creativity, I started to follow her. Fast forward into 2021, and this budding podcast producer thought I might take a chance and reach out to see if I could convince her to be a guest here in the Nook. Not so surprisingly, she was incredibly cordial and willing to give me some of her time. This is not just a chance to meet a warm and wonderful person. It's a peek into a world that we all benefit from, but few might be aware of just how it all gets done. Katie has shared stages and recording studios with some of the entertainment world's biggest names, and just happens to have married into the family of a Christian music original gangster, Sandi Patty. If you don't know who that is, pause this and go do a quick Google search. Sandi's voice can bring the house down. Being raised in a musical family, marrying into another, and moving to Nashville are all steps in the right direction for someone born to perform. But that doesn't mean that stardom comes easy. She, like so many others, is in a realm where nothing is guaranteed, and a year's worth of quarantine has virtually shut down her primary industry. Even with so much that is uncertain, Katie has maintained such an admirable attitude, and I'm so grateful that she was willing to spend some time sharing a bit of her story. So settle in for my conversation with Katie Peslis. All right. Well, to dive into this, first and foremost, if you had to describe your career to somebody, how would you even begin?
Wow, what a nuanced question. Oh, Stephen, we're just going to dive right in. So
have at it.
I would say I am a mainly session singer, impressionist, background vocalist, and out of Nashville, Tennessee, and have been doing that for about 7 years. And so, but what's crazy is the impression side is what really got me into doing what I do for a living. I really, it started young. I started impersonating people when I was a kid. And so it was out of that I was truly kind of given my set of wings, if you will, from people who believed in me. And my parents who pushed me to, and didn't think that it was, what was kind of quirky and funny to them. They thought they didn't put a damper on it. They allowed me to really explore that part of my personality, I guess. Yeah. And so it has turned into mainly session singer, a singer for hire, if you will, okay. A singer or impressionist for hire. But for the most part, it was singing the role of Anna from Frozen that in 2014, that getting hired to do that really kind of catapulted me. And we can talk about that. I will go on and on about that.
For the first time in forever, there'll be magic, there'll be light. For the first time in forever, I'll be dancing through the night.
But that's really what I do. I'm a singer, impressionist, background vocalist, kind of you name it here in Nashville. It's been really neat to find my niche, which is with Disney and with children's books and things like that. And not trying to, like I always say, not trying to be a different topping on the pizza and right. Just be the topping I was created to be. And so but it is not there are a lot of really talented people here. I just can't believe I've been given the opportunity to go into the studio and stand next to those people and make music. So.
Okay. Well, and at the risk of playing the name dropping game, do you have 2 or 3 that people would go, oh, no way?
I do. I have gotten some, here's what I'll say. I've gotten some really, really cool opportunities. And again, it's overwhelming sometimes to get that phone call. And I don't live for that phone call, but a couple that I've gotten that were quite overwhelming for me were getting to sing for Dolly Parton.
Nice.
That was on the CMAs. So we got to sing on television with her at the CMAs 2019, which was actually just happened to be my 30th birthday.
Oh, nice.
With Dolly Parton on the CMAs, filmed it on my birthday. It didn't air until later, but we actually filmed it on my birthday. So that was quite magical. And then I will work on my birthday for that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so let's see, Dolly Parton, Katy Perry, that one was really, really cool. It was a Christmas single that she did, and she hired us to be a part of that recording. I have sung with, let's see, of course, Sandy Patty. She's a great one. I'm partial, but I think she's pretty great.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah, I sang on the Forever Grateful, her farewell tour. For 3 years, and that's why we moved here in 2016.
Okay.
Did that for 3 years, and some really cool video games. I'm trying to think. We've done FIFA video games, like the soccer game. We've done some fun stuff for Warner Brothers. I've done some video games my husband plays, which is really funny. He thinks it's awesome to like name drop that one, that his wife is like, on the radio in a car. If you run over and, listen to this, there's his wife.
Interesting.
There was Seth MacFarlane. That was a cool one. Being a voice actress myself, getting to sing for Seth MacFarlane on a record was really, really cool. So those are a few that really will go down as some of the highlights of my singing career.
I feel like it's worth mentioning, because, and I want this to sound like I do my homework when I'm prepping for a guest, but a story from you that I found rather fascinating was a Christmas present that you got as a child that sounded to me like that essentially kickstarted at least a part of your impersonation life. Absolutely. Is that a fair way of being cryptic about it?
I would say 1,000%.
Tell me more about that.
So I was about 8 or 9 years old, and my, Christmas morning came, and I was with, it was my mother, my mom, my dad, and my brother and I. And we went to open our Christmas stockings, and one right after the other, I started pulling out cassette tapes. Now, when I say cassette tapes on stage, when I'm performing a show, a lot of people are thinking, you can't be old enough to remember. I understand. My parents, I was younger than my brother by almost 7 years. So my parents my parents were in their prime in the 70s. They got married in the 70s. And so 70s music was always playing in our house. And so that nostalgia of cassette tapes, record players, all of that was my parents' prime of their life, of their young adulthood in the 70s. So I was raised a little bit more nostalgic towards those kinds of things, that 70s style music. And so we loved cassette tapes in our house and records and things like that. So
old school.
Old school, yes. So I'm thankful for that. So I started pulling out these cassette tapes of this singer I'd never heard of before, Karen Carpenter. And I remember, kind of rolling my eyes at my parents thinking, what on earth have you done? What are you doing? And, because the cassette tapes, they were dated. I mean, even the photo. And then I will never forget the first time I pressed play on my little boombox. And hearing her go, frosted window pane, it took my breath away. And I remember specifically what caught me was how this woman sang at the center of the pitch all the time. even, like all the time. And my dad, I was raised in a musical home. My dad was actually a minister of music and has his master's in conducting. And so music was always in our home. My mother plays piano beautifully and was always our church accompanist. And then my brother can play. I mean, I remember one year he just asked for a viola for Christmas and started playing the viola and had never played it before. I mean, Kyle really beautifully plays, just musicality just ran through our home. And that was
like it.
That was it was our language to each other. And so hearing her sing, and my dad always instilled into me that pitch was so important. And so I heard her, and I mean, she never flubbed from the center of the pitch ever.
Yeah. She was so solid.
Oh, she was so solid. It was like butter. And I had never heard anybody like that before. And so I just started, and I was probably 8, like I said, I was probably 8 or 9. So my voice was still pretty high at that point, but pretty early on, my voice started to kind of my singing voice began to lower, where I was able to imitate some men like that my parents, some tenor friends of ours. And so I would start to imitate. They were men from church. Mm-hmm. I would imitate them, and my parents were like, holy cow, she's like getting the inflection or even like the nuance of how they're shaping their mouth. And so they noticed that. So that was why they thought, you know what, if she is going to start imitating people, we want her to imitate the best. And so they started playing Karen Carpenter, Sandy Patty, Jodie Benson, who played Little Mermaid, and just these musical icons. And so I started to find that little niche. And I'll never forget the first time that I kind of did that little, like, we've only just begun. I was probably 9, and my parents were like, what just came out of our 9-year-old little girl? And so they, like I said earlier, though, my parents, it was such a quirky little niche that I found myself in, but my parents never made it feel quirky. They just, it kind of became this dinner trick, and they'd say, Katie, go grab the Wizard of Oz lion costume and do the lion for everybody.
Oh, and that's awesome.
It just became this kind of party trick. And so then as I learned, and as I, they started playing me Whitney Houston and Billie Holiday and people that I didn't necessarily, I cannot even begin to impersonate Billie Holiday, but these were iconic voices that they began to teach me, these little things about the inflection or the way someone's mouth was moving. And that turned into listening to the Carpenters. That kind of did turn into, I watched all the Disney movies. I would watch, there was a Barbra Streisand, like VHS special that she did at Madison Square Gardens in the 96. And she was in a white pantsuit. And my parents got me that on VHS. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
My parents got me that VHS, and I sat in my bedroom and would just watch her and learn how she'd inflect. And so it really became almost a hobby and an art of mine that I wanted to learn.
That's the word that I was just thinking, because this goes beyond just casual study at that point.
Yes, it was definitely a very specific thing I was trying to pick up on and learn. Yeah, those cassette tapes, I still have them. They are forever going to be, a family heirloom for me.
Oh, I don't see how it couldn't be. And I love that it sounds like your parents were not just encouraging, but really fostered that for you.
They did. And they still do. My dad because my dad was a singer, beautiful baritone voice. My dad never wanted me to take voice lessons until my voice was fully developed. So his thought was he didn't want me to go to a vocal coach at 10, 12, even 16, 17. He wanted to wait until I was in college. And he would work with me on like breath support and that kind of thing, but he just never wanted anyone to change what I had.
Oh, I see.
Try to manipulate it in a way that it completely just formed completely naturally. He's always said if he had heard me doing something wrong, he would tell me, but he just wanted it to develop as naturally as possible and not make me feel almost like a child star. They were very anti that. They did not want me to get in my head or to get cocky about it. My parents, I was never a competitive kid. And so my parents knew, let's just let Katie figure this out and be told no and audition and be told yes or be told no. They just wanted it to develop completely naturally. And I'm really grateful for that because it's definitely made me, I think, a harder worker for sure than I think I would have been otherwise.
Well, then it was almost like he was being protective without being so isolating with you, kind of guarding that gift against something that might send you off in the wrong direction with it, right? Absolutely. From a professional musician perspective, I do believe he genuinely had my best interest at heart. And like I said, I'm really grateful for that. So I didn't start taking voice until I was in college with my first voice professor, and she was incredible. But she actually heard my speaking voice and wanted me to start singing soprano, and I hated it. Because it was a lot harder than singing alto. And so I actually trained in college as a second soprano, but sang second alto in choir all the way through college. So I'm grateful it helped me build my range out. I am no Sandy Patty. I think she has 4 octaves. I do not. Oh, yeah, that doesn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah, but I definitely got kind of to broaden my horizons once I started taking voice lessons and understanding the ins and outs of the voice. So it was all fascinating to me.
Okay. Well, often when somebody takes up the word or uses the word impressionist, Karen Carpenter doesn't just come whizzing to the front of what that list or whatever looks or sounds like, but yet you've obviously perhaps cornered the market on a Karen Carpenter sound. I mean, was that in your mind going back several years, or is that just something that has developed?
Not at all. When I will say, I remember as a kid sitting in the car with my dad, and we would listen to the Christmas portrait record. And I remember telling him that I wanted to do my own at that point, in 1998, 99, it wasn't a cover record. We weren't using the words cover or anything like that. But I told my dad I wanted to record a few Karen Carpenter songs someday. And so we started my dad, because he's a conductor, he began, saying, okay, well, you could have the woodwinds do this, and you could have the brass come in and do this, and maybe you could do a medley of these songs. And so I definitely knew in the back of my mind that I always wanted to record the Karen Carpenter music.
Sure.
But never thought in a million years I would get to travel and do shows for people.
We've only just begun to live. White lace and promises, a kiss for luck, and we're on our way. Before the rising sun, we fly. So many roads to choose. We start out walking and learn to run.
Because at that time, I never knew her alive, but at that time she was so fresh to me. It was like I was hearing her for the first time. Yeah. I think I realized it started to hit me that people, because she was lost so soon, so young and so tragically, I think people ache to hear her. There's yes, you can press play on a record or a CD or stream her on Spotify or something, but there's something about having that live feel that really was taken away so soon. And her death, at age 32. And so, I realized I didn't ever think of it as a kid to I'll do this as a profession someday.
Right.
But I definitely, once I realized that and this is huge for me. So Sandy actually taught us this, and I kind of live by this. She always taught us that, there's a moment in time when an opportunity. If we keep our eyes open and we work hard, there's an opportunity, and where our hard work intersects with the needs of the world and with the needs of others. And so for me, it was that moment of putting two and two together. That intersection for me was someone contacted me and said, "Hey, I know you've done this, Karen Carpenter. I heard you do a YouTube video. We've only just begun with Donnie and I riding in the car, and I was singing to him, but doing a Karen Carpenter impersonation." They said, we actually would love to book a Karen Carpenter. Like, this is perfect. This is such a niche for what we need to do it was a Royal Caribbean cruise.
Oh, okay.
So I said, absolutely. And it hit me. Oh my gosh, I could actually. So the more I started diving into it, there are not very many Karen Carpenter tribute singers, but people want to hear it. They want to hear that music live because they haven't heard it in so long. So I like I said, I never kind of set out to. I always knew I wanted to record it, but I never set out to actually do live shows. But it will pack a theater for people to come and hear that music in person for the first time since 1981. Mm-hmm. And that's a really special thing. I got to see. I did 5 sold out shows before COVID hit, and I got to see the look in people's eyes when you start singing "We've Only Just Begun," and it was sung at their wedding or something like that. It is truly, it's quite something. It's very, very special.
Well, and in that moment, you must be so aware of what a great gift you have at that point, that it can bless so many people, that somebody who might even be twice your age that is suddenly whisked back in time to a date or a season or something that is so memorable to them that voice evokes. I mean, I can only imagine what people tell you after a show.
It is. It's truly overwhelming, to be honest, in the sweetest way. And I will say, I mean, obviously, and I know you and I have talked about this in our emails back and forth, and you've seen me talk about this on Instagram as well. But, I'm not necessarily a Christian singer, but to me, I believe that I believe in that God created me to bring joy and bring and just spread light and life, His love that He's given me to others, whatever that looks like. And so for me, it might not be ministry per se, like on paper, but to me, it is in the sense of getting to just maybe take someone back to that moment that their last moment they had with their spouse. And I see it as, a true honor. And, because some people came up to me afterwards, honestly, Stephen, and were just overwhelmed of, this was sung at our wedding, and I lost my spouse 5 years ago. And, you just never know what that does for, I just can't imagine what that would do for my spirit.
Oh, yeah.
To be taken back to that moment. And then to feel like I got to be a catalyst to let that, to help that person, that widow or widower, feel what they did, when they had that person here on earth and they weren't heavenside. So it is truly a blessing. And, but I think to share her music and to be, like I said, a catalyst for taking people back to a special moment is really powerful. And it's such a gift.
Yeah. Do you love performing?
I really do. I really do. I was never a shy kid. And let's be honest, when I'm not singing here in Nashville, I'm a nanny. And so I feel like I am just constantly keeping kids entertained. We are just, if we're in a line at the parks at Disney World, we're taking our nieces and nephews, and my husband and I are playing a game. I just love it. I love making people laugh and bringing them joy. And so performing is just a part of who I am. And I'm very extroverted. So there are for sure times that I love not being, it's not like I live my life on. Who I am is who you see on stage is the same as I am at home. And, but I just get so much energy and joy out of reacting with an audience and seeing their face when you start singing a certain song that means something to them. I mean, there's just nothing like it. Singing on the tour, and honestly, singing on the tour with Sandy, we had a front row seat, if you will, to a pro.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so getting to do that every single night and getting to watch her do that every single night. And then the fact that she allowed us to take moments. There was one, this is a great story. There was one moment that we were on Christmas tour and she accidentally flubbed the set list. So so we're off stage and she starts introducing the song that goes at the end. This is the top of the first half of the show. There's always an intermission. And so it's at the top of the first half, the end of the first half of the show. And she starts singing the last song, like of the night.
Dope.
And I mean, you think about it. I mean, we had probably done 40 shows by that point. So maybe 30. And I mean, we were doing them constantly from Thanksgiving to I'm pretty sure we did it from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve. To New Year's. I mean, we went even after Christmas. People still want to hear Sandy sing Christmas music. Sure. We had done so many shows in that time. And so she kind of started to, it happens. She just got in her mind. We were still 3 days ago and she started to end the show. And so we're all standing off stage, all the background singers, and we're like, she's going to turn it. She's going to catch what she's doing and she's going to turn it because she's a pro. And no, she didn't. And so she said, right as she said, Mary, did you know? We were like, okay. She said, she realized, what have I done? I have just given away our biggest moment in the first half of the show. So she accidentally announces our finale. And so we run out on stage and we do the finale. And so we come off stage for second half and she's like, no, guys, I'm so sorry. And she pulls me aside and she says, Katie, I made a boo-boo and now we need 4 minutes. We need 4 minutes to be back in the show. And I don't know what we're going to do. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do. The only solution to me is, will you please, this is your moment. Will you please go out there and sing Merry Christmas, Darling?
Oh, nice.
And Jay Rouse, who was our accompanist, who played on my We've Only Just Begun record, he and I had done it a couple times in sound check. So that's how she knew I could do. I mean, obviously I've sung Karen for a while, but that's how she knew I really did the impression.
Yeah.
And so Jay he and I kind of went off stage and he said, okay, is this the turn? Do you want to do it this length or this length? Let's do a shortened version. I said, absolutely. So we went out there and we did it and you could hear a pin drop.
Merry Christmas, darling. We're apart, that's true. But I can dream, and in my dreams, I'm Christmasing with you.
So what she literally had me do it the rest of the tour.
Oh, wow.
Because it was such a special moment. And then the family started doing like the Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. They started doing the BGVs. And it really became this moment. And that was what I'll say about that is that was a moment that I'm so thankful it happened the way it happened because it was just so natural. She had heard me singing it in sound check. She knew I could do it. I didn't audition for that moment. Intersection, like training and work and opportunity intersects with need.
Yep.
And it came and I got a chance to do that. And that was the moment. That was the moment of realizing, wow, this really, really resonates with people. And
well, and in that moment, how cool to live out that biblical mindset of being ready in and out of season, because you never know when a moment like that is gonna fall in your lap, quite literally.
Absolutely, absolutely. When COVID hit, I was actually, we went from having 10 shows booked. We were ready to go do a Karen Carpenter tour. And amidst that, I was doing sessions and doing things like that and doing some voice acting things here and there. But the trajectory totally changed when COVID hit.
Yeah.
But what's so crazy is I went from, being on top of the world to I started cleaning houses. And that was a moment when we first moved to Nashville, we were so poor. And so I worked at PetSmart and was cleaning homes. And I will never be better than cleaning someone's house. Never, ever. We've seen in COVID that anything can happen in the blink of an eye. And so I will never, I never want to say that I'm better than that at all. But I will say that was really tough to go from, being the star of a show to having to go back to cleaning homes. It felt like, okay, Lord, I thought this was the moment. I thought this was it. And so I'm going to be obedient and I'm going to clean. And so I started cleaning the houses for some clients. I was actually in the master bathroom, scrubbing the floor of their shower, bleaching and cleaning. And my phone rang, and it was a Disney producer. And he said, Katie, do you remember that thing you did a year and a half ago? That demo you did? Well, they fell in love with it, and Disney wants to have you record it. Oh, wow. And this was, again, like I said, I don't live for those phone calls, but when they come, it's really cool. And it's really, and he's a believer as well. And so it was just a pretty incredible moment. And so I told him, I said, listen, I want you to know I'm literally cleaning I'm literally cleaning a bathroom for someone else right now. Yeah. This is my Cinderella moment. Yes. And so, I've definitely experienced the highs and lows of this business, but I wouldn't trade it. I think that I would clean houses and nanny children and deliver groceries for the rest of my life if I get to have pockets of singing. And I don't believe it will always be that way. I hope that I don't have to always have 4 jobs, but I would, because I love doing this. And I'm really grateful. And I believe that those opportunities to sing those Karen shows they're going to resurface and they're going to come back.
Well, I'm curious with that. Obviously your direction has had to change a time or 2 or maybe even 3 with that. Did you ever doubt, or do you ever doubt that it won't play out the way you thought it would a year ago or 5 years ago when you are having to kind of diversify like that?
I like that word. I like the word diversify my income bringing in. I absolutely. I have moments of doubt. When we lost those shows, let me say this. Of course I doubt. Absolutely. But I'm thankful that it doesn't, again, I think it goes back to the way my parents raised me and knowing whose I am and who I am, that this is not the end of the world. And this is just merely a speed bump. And it not in an unhealthy way by any means. I genuinely, I have grieved a ton in the process of losing what we lost in 2020. Sure. And already in 2021, there have been some tough blows. But at the end of the day, although I spent about 2 days looking up veterinary school because I thought, man, I kind of sometimes wish I was a vet who sang. Wow. Or not a singer who loves animals. I know that I was called to this, and that truly was able to give me I got the most hope from the Lord, remembering and being reminded of that I am much more than just my singing voice, and I can record a Karen song or record a Karen record and go sing with Richard. I've sung at Carnegie, like we got a chance to sing at Carnegie, and that's all wonderful and good. But at the end of the day, you leave Carnegie and 6 months later I was cleaning floors. Right. So I don't want to ever put my eggs in that basket. My eggs I can put in an eternal basket is the eternal basket I can put my eggs in. Let me say that. I'll say it better that time. is being a light to people in my daily days as well, and not just constantly striving for for maybe the big thing or the lights or the stardom or whatever or the next gig or the next phone call, but actually living my daily days in a way that is honoring to the Lord and brings light and joy into people who I come in contact with.
Oh, sure. Well, and how much better does that make the average day when you can keep that kind of a perspective and that there isn't just some brutal carrot hanging out there in front of you all the time that always feels so unreachable? It's like, no, why be so focused on something that may or may not ever happen? And that's not to be, doomsday.
No,
it's just to be, I want to be realistic and optimistic and all kinds of istic.
All the istics. Yes, absolutely. It does. It makes it much easier and much more fun to go pick up kids and sit in a carpool line. And I remember that perspective and not lose that perspective. And so, that's when I like reluctantly was like, I'm going to go clean houses. I'm going to get my bucket and my mop again. I truly believe God met me there on that floor of that bathroom and just said, watch this. Yeah. Just watch. When you think you are at your moment of giving up, watch what I'm going to do. And so I have to just walk into every session knowing that and finding that reminding myself what my real spark is more than just singing it carries me from day to day for sure.
Is it fair to say, pardon me if this sounds like an assumption, but is it fair to say that you don't know what's next, but you're okay with it?
I love that. I love that idea. That could not sum up the start of 2021 more. If 2020 taught any of us anything, which I know if we were looking for it, it could teach you something. But for me, in our house, it taught us to go into things with just open hands and loose grip, if you will, on our plans and on what we see in the future. And so, yes, am I dreaming of some things? Absolutely. But no matter what that the next 6 months, 6 years, 16 years looks like, I am really, really excited for it.
Rather than try to talk about one or two nuggets from this one, I feel like I'm left with more of a theme. And even that is a little difficult to explain. God gives us amazing gifts and talents, and we all have our own ideas on how they should play out. But what do you do when your plans don't go the way you hoped they would or even thought they would? I hope that it hit you like it did me, about how Katie was willing to leave her dream in God's hands and go clean houses and take care of kids, all while waiting for her next opportunity to use that beautiful voice, realizing that she can still add value to people's lives every day. I've got links to Katie's pages down in the show notes. Please go check all of that out. You will not be disappointed. As always, I am reachable on one email address, and that is Stephen@nookpodcast.com. Stephen with a V at nookpodcast.com. And please make sure to join our Facebook page if you haven't already. It's facebook.com/meetmeinthenook. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will catch you here next time in the Nook. The Nook Podcast is a production of Sozo Digital Media.